Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. We're here for our Manchester United versus Chelsea preview. It's the penultimate game of the season. It's also the penultimate game before we play the Europa League Final. And because of that, we're in the studio and I'm joined by Terry, Football Terrace. How you doing, pal?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. A little nervous about the final, but I just want the Premier League season over, to be fair. But aside from that, mate, champion.
Good. Okay, so look, Chelsea, Manchester United, Premier League game. Do you go strong? Do you go weak? I've got my 11 going to come up on the screen now. And as you can see, I have gone pretty strong. I've gone Onana, Maguire, Lindelof and Shaw, Dorgu, Casemiro, Ugarte, Mazraoui, Bruno, Ahmad and Rasmus. Obviously, people will be saying, where's Garnacho, etc. like that. I understand that. But I've gone quite strong. Obviously, we know De Ligt, Yoro and Dalot won't be playing. So centre-back wise, I don't have a lot of choice.
No.
I'm basically going... I'm probably picking my team for the final, apart from Garnacho. I'm not saying I'm dropping for that. I'm just thinking, give Ahmad a start, bring Garnacho off.
See, I get why you're doing it. For me, the player that started on the bench against West Ham, so for instance, Bruno Fernandes as an example. Did he start on the bench? Or did he start the game, Bruno? No, Bruno started the game.
Yeah.
But players that started on the bench, like Casemiro, I would start, and I'd take some players out who came on as subs, because I know a lot of people criticise Amorim for starting our main players ahead of the final, but they couldn't go 2 weeks without kicking the ball. That would be stupid.
Yeah.
But for me, I would put a bit more rotation in. So anyone that's a starter for the final that started against West Ham, I would have them on the bench and vice versa, just so they keep a little bit of flow, keep the blood going through their legs. But like Maz as an example, the manager keeps saying he's exhausted, so I wouldn't even have him in the match day squad, if I'm being honest.
He played for 90 minutes, didn't he? Against
I know, I know, because of other injuries. So I wouldn't risk Maz at all. I'd keep him at home. I'd wrap him in cotton wool, because we're going to need him against Tottenham. Yeah,
let us know in the comments what team you would go with. I mean, look, I think Chelsea are going to be really up for this. It's not necessarily the right sort of game for United. It's away from home. It's against a Chelsea side that really need the points for top four. I'd be much happier with Southampton at home, Old Trafford, let them win 1-0 and we just don't get any more injuries. As you say, losing Mazraoui, Maguire, any defender at this point, and we're in big trouble. In fact, actually, in the attack, I've not included Mason Mount. I've not included Garnacho. So in the attack, we have got options, apart from Rasmus, obviously, if anything happens to him. With regards to the final, we are a few days away. And the context of the Chelsea game, it is on a Friday night. We don't play till Wednesday. That's a positive. But is there anything from this game that we can get positively wise, other than, a win?
It depends if you're Amorim in or if you're Amorim out. Yeah. So if you want him gone, you're going to be demanding blood, sweat, tears, the best press in the world. And I just don't think it's going to happen. I've been annoyed at the lack of commitment, or the picking and choosing of commitment from certain players in certain games. The way we played away at Liverpool versus how we've played a lot of our home games this season. I don't think that's about coaching. I don't think that's about anything other than the bad player attitude that we've seen at the club for a long time now. For me, I'm in two minds. There's part of me that wants to beat Chelsea, of course, and throw a spanner into the top four works. But do you know what? In reality, Bruno Fernandes goes crunching into a tackle and does his ankle. What was the point? So for me, I don't expect to see United playing at an overly intense level. You see this all the time. Forget United. When a team's got a big final coming up, when a team has got a big game that defines their season, you often see a lack of intensity in the 2 or 3 games leading up to it. So, my hope is that the pressure gets to Chelsea a little bit, actually, and they play within themselves, and maybe we can nick a positive result just to keep the media wolves at bay. But honestly, my gut feeling ain't good about this game, because we're going to lack intensity. Chelsea need this win. They're away to Forest final game, which is massive. So I think Chelsea are just going to have too much intensity for us in the game.
Yeah, I think pre the West Ham game, I was sort of thinking these last 2 games, you don't know whether you're starting if you're Mason Mount, if you're Garnacho, if you're Ugarte, if you're Luke Shaw. There's a few players that don't know that they're necessarily starting. So I thought West Ham buzzing to be in the final. You're going to see a good performance and people are going to be auditioning. We didn't see that. So no. I'm not expecting we're going to see it in Chelsea 4 days out. And as you say, Chelsea need this win. Their cup final in many ways. They've got 2, Forest away. They're going to be intense. They've got very intense players like Enzo, Casido. They will be physical. And I'm like, I don't see what we get out of this game that's good. You know, even if we win, at what price? You know, Maguire pulls his hamstring. There's nothing that comes out of this game that massively helps us.
No.
And I also don't. I think some people will be screaming, going, "Well, there is, you know, momentum, confidence, the Paul Scholes of the world out there." But I just think we want to play Spurs. I think we're ready to play Spurs on Friday. I think we know Spurs is our season. That's it. There's not a lot from Chelsea that we get. If we play well, I don't think it means we play well against Spurs. And if we play shit, I don't think it means we play well against Spurs.
You're spot on. There is no tangible evidence that smashing and playing well against Chelsea guarantees a win in the game against Tottenham. And we've seen that in the Europa League all season. We've seen that when we've had bad runs of form. Oh God, we've lost 3 on the bounce. We've got Liverpool next. Suddenly, we put in a top level performance. Rightly or wrongly, some will put this on Amorim. I personally think this has been a systemic problem for the best part of a decade in this squad. They pick and choose when they want to play. They pick and choose what the important games are. And I'm not saying every single player does that, but you're a team. It's a collective effort. And I just don't think these players as a collective care enough about this Chelsea game to give it. And in the Premier League, when you lack 5% intensity compared to your opponent, you lose. So for me, the biggest win is getting no injuries to any of our starting players. So with Rasmus, we know he hasn't had a great season. There's a lot of pressure on him. I wouldn't let him touch the pitch. Give it to Obi. Let him play. Let him be nurtured a little bit. Give him some experience. Because I think some of the kids will go out there and play with him intensity. Because Kone and Obi, they're not going to play in the final. Obi can't. So they may go out and give it a little bit more than someone. And even in the back of the player's mind, they might not be lazy. It could be a Bruno that definitely doesn't pick and choose when he wants to work hard. There may still be a part in his mind thinking, am I going to sprint 30 yards to keep that ball in and risk pulling my groin ahead of a final? No. And I don't blame them, considering the game in all intents and purposes means nothing for us. So I hope Ruben doesn't play and start too many of the main 11.
I've got quite strong in mind. Let us know in the chat which one what your 11s would be, and do you agree with us that the game is really an inconvenience? You probably won't get this from a lot of sort of the ex-players crew because they don't understand it. They're like, every game's a game to go and win it. I'll drop it even further and say, if this was Jose Mourinho, he would probably play the kids, because I know he didn't necessarily do that when we played against Ajax, but he did make a lot of changes in the games before it. But there is an element, and I don't think Amorim will do it, and I don't think some of you will accept it, and I certainly think some of the Amorim outers would not accept it. But if somebody said to me, you lose 4-0 with the kids on Friday, but everybody's fit for the final, sign up here, I would sign up here. I'll still do the watch along, I'll still watch it because I want to see how the kids perform.
Yeah.
But I absolutely do not think anybody will give a toss or remember a 4-0 loss to Chelsea on Friday if we win the final next Wednesday. We'll have to put up with it on Friday night. We'll have to put up with it on Saturday. Amorim out, it's embarrassing, 18 losses, worst Premier League season ever. Amorim out, you know, and all that shite. But it will be short-lived. No one will remember it. And even if we lose the final, no one will remember it because we'll be building for next season.
Those people at Amorim out, even if we beat Chelsea and win the Europa League final anyway. So with all due respect to them, and everyone's entitled to the footballing opinion, I couldn't care less what they think. They don't want him here. They've already turned their back, you know, and look, everyone's entitled to support the club how they want. They'll say, I'm not negative, I'm raising standards. Great. If that's how you see it, fair play to you. But for me, I'm just not listening to those individuals. They're ignoring... They have done for the best part of a decade, ignored all the root cause problems at the football club. They're again doing up the whole, if we change managers, watch us improve. But these are by and large, there's an overlap. And they said that when it comes to Ragnick and Ten Hag and Oli and Jose, and nothing's improved. We need a manager who the club stand by. We need to remove any player that's insubordinate, doesn't want to work hard, picks and choose when he plays. We need to build a balanced squad. All of that needs to change before the next manager, in my personal opinion, just looking at the lay of the land right now. So for me, they're gonna hate him whether we win or lose anyway. So I'm just not listening to him.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that if we did play the kids, there'd obviously be a lot of boilers out there going absolutely mad about it, but people would be fit. One element to it is the Liam Delap derby.
Yes.
Apparently, Liam, it's not true, but journalists keep writing it. Apparently, Liam Delap's waiting to see if we're in the Champions League. I mean, it's preposterous that an Ipswich striker is waiting to see if we're in the Champions League, having, the only time he's been in Europe is when he's been on holiday. So I don't know what he's on about, but he's not on about that. It's just the press. But if it was the Liam Delap derby, not losing to Chelsea might stop Chelsea going into the Champions League. So that is a motivator, maybe, not for me. Score prediction, what do you think? How do you think this will go?
What I would love...
I know what I was going to say.
Go on.
Actually, I think this game's harder than Spurs. Chelsea at Stamford Bridge,
right.
I think they're a better team than Spurs, and it's a harder game than Spurs. It's just the context. Like, Spurs is absolutely huge, but actually on paper, the Chelsea game's a harder game than Spurs next week when you look at the availability, where we're playing, what they're playing for. Mentally, obviously, we all know Spurs is a bigger game and going to be a harder game, but actually, this is a really shitty game to have 4 days before a final. Yeah, Same for Spurs, to be fair. They've got to go Villa as well.
Well, do you remember when the final game of the season for Man United got postponed a number of years ago because they found a suspected package in one of the toilets at Old Trafford?
Oh, yeah. Who was it we were playing?
I don't remember who we were playing. But I want to say it was the Van Gaal season.
Yeah, I do vaguely remember
we were
playing. For
playing...
some reason, I'm thinking Sunderland, and that's mad.
Yeah,
I don't think it would have been Sunderland.
No, I don't think... It might be Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
Maybe it was... Maybe a pipe could burst. Maybe an act of God will happen and the game gets postponed. That would be the best outcome, actually. The floodlights don't work. Like something along those lines maybe we need.
But that's what I think. That's why I think Jose Mourinho would have the aura and ego to go, I don't care what you think. He'd do the press conference afterwards with the kids when they've lost 4-0 and the reserves, and they'd go, why did you do this? And they'd go, look, I've got a final on Wednesday, see you later. I don't think you'd get away with that now, but I do think that is, sort of like going to be useful. Be interesting to see what Spurs do in a very similar game with Villa at Villa Park on Friday night, because I think Ange will go weak.
Massive. Well, he did. The rotation was huge for their game against Palace. I mean, Palace... I didn't watch the game live, I just saw the stats and then I watched the highlights. Palace had the ball, they had all the chances. A lot of Tottenham defeats this season, obviously on the Football Terrace we cover all these clubs. Most of Spurs' defeats, very good plug for the channel.
On That's Football, we also cover all clubs.
Absolutely. I've watched so many Tottenham games. I've actually watched all but one of their games this season. Most of the games they lose at home, they're the better side and then concede, where the Palace game was the opposite way around. So I expect them to go very, very weak. But again, it's the methodology. I think Amorim's approach is this 50-50 split of I'm going to start some of my starters against West Ham and the others are subs. And I'm thinking he might reverse that for the game where let's see what he does, Big Ange, but he went very weak for this game. Will he go very weak again? The potential advantage for United then is... those Spurs players haven't kicked the ball properly for 2 weeks. So, again, I'm looking for any advantage we can get because it's important to win. But that's what I hope they do, because I would still rather our players get 30 minutes, 45 minutes than nothing.
Just looking, I'll tell you what, I bet on Google, if you're at Google today and you're looking at trends, patella injury recovery times is probably doing really well, because I've just searched it. So this is the injury that Kulusevski's got. Now, it's such a shame. I think that's the standard line I've told everyone at the United stand to put out there. It's such a shame that Kulusevski's injured. He's had an operation on a patella injury. Recovery time, according to AI, is simple undisplaced fractures can heal within 6 weeks, while more severe ones can be 3 to 6 months. Hopefully it's just 6 weeks, but it's certainly not 6 days. So Kulusevski is a shock for Spurs. They knew he had a bit of a knock, but I think Ange had said it wasn't that bad. Maddison's apparently out as well. Bergvall we know is out. So they're starting to lose a few players like us here at the moment.
They are. And look, I'm never someone that celebrates injuries. I wish them all the best.
He did in there.
A little bit, but it's one of those things where this is where the human element, you don't want to be hurt. But from the football fan perspective, no Kulusevski and no Maddison. And Maddison, who scored against us this season and played well.
6 weeks.
Son's been out. There's no way you don't look at it and go, well, that's a potential advantage for us. There's no way that Spurs fans, I don't think any real Spurs fans celebrated when Lenny Yoro walked off.
No,
but there'll be a part of them
helps.
think, they would much rather play against Lindelof than Lenny Yoro. So when you're being honest about it, but
I think he's a massive loss for them. I actually think in a bad season, I'm not saying he's been Bruno, but every time I've watched him, he always looks like a decent player, and I think it's a big loss for them. But look, I don't want to give up the favourites tag, so they're still favourites.
Oh, Spurs are 100% the favourites. They're 100%. And the biggest reason they're favourites, they've got more power and more pace than us. And I think Man United's biggest issue this season, in nearly all the games that we've narrowly been defeated in, we ain't got runners. People that can't drive with the ball.
Look at that game at Old Trafford, Van der Ven. Like a bully.
No one can get near him. And we're such a... In Europe, that's why one of the reasons I didn't want the Spurs final is the European teams, we've either had more physicality than or the 100%. Same as. So therefore, if we've got better technical players, we've been able to shine. Where Spurs, they are bigger and stronger and quicker than we are. And this is not going to be a European final in the sense of you're not going to be European football. It is going to be a Premier League game. And that's my biggest fear. But Spurs are definitely the favourites for this game. There's no doubt about it. We're the big underdogs, people.
I tell you what, I agree wholeheartedly. But I also think that if we're going to have injuries, it's probably better that we have them defensively than offensively, because we know I feel like it's turning into a preview for Spurs, but they do play the high line, and obviously they've got injuries in their creative area. So hypothetically, having injuries in the defence and not many injuries in the attack probably helps us, because they're weakened in their attack, we're weakened in the defence. But they play that high line. You need the Amads, you need the Garnachos. Hopefully Rasmus has a good game. Hopefully Mount can come. We need Dorgu overlapping. Hopefully we can exploit that high line of Spurs. But what do you think about Amorim when he said that the Champions League qualification is more important than the Europa League trophy? Because that's always been is top four more important than a trophy? I admire the honesty.
I think the problem with the reaction to it is it's the criminal offence that we're doing here, the big criminal offence, which is applying context. Context is a very dirty word in the social media world. I think if you're consistently coming fourth and third, you're a wealthy club, you've got a very good bank balance, and you're celebrating that, and you're not worried about progression, it becomes tiring. But equally, Nottingham Forest qualifying for the Champions League this year, I think will do more for their longer-term success than winning the FA Cup, because at the end of the day, the Champions League money will be invested by their owner. Crystal Palace, they want that FA Cup absolutely, but how much more could their club actually invest with the extra money, because they don't have that big a revenue, they don't have an owner that's willing to spend at the same rate. So you have to look at the context and who the football clubs are. For us, we might spend, after selling players, 150, 200 million this summer, and that's a very big might. You add in an extra £100 million of Champions League and prize money from the Europa League, and you could push that to 250 towards 300. And we need to bring in much better quality on the ball and loads more athletes into this team. We need more Cunhas in their respective positions. Do that, and I think you will see this Amorim system come alive for the people that can't yet see it. So I absolutely agree with him that Champions League, it isn't playing in the Champions League, it's the money to improve the squad is important. So I think in the context of where United are, he's 100% right. Yeah,
I agree. And I think another layer to that is the fact that he didn't win the FA Cup to put us in the Europa League.
True.
And if he wins the Europa League, it's a big piece of silverware. But it's the Champions League that allows him to do what he needs. I think if he could have got fourth place from the Premier League, then he's still in the Champions League. And what he knows is that the vision he has, the system he's trying to build, he knows, like you said, the component parts he needs, he knows what they're going to cost.
Yes.
And if he doesn't get that, then he can't get that. So the Europa League will not deliver the finances to do it. It's the Champions League.
We have only had one manager since Fergie who cared about the league more so than lifting the trophies in isolation, and that was Ollie. but Ollie just wasn't a good enough. He got to a certain point, couldn't get us to that next level. The hope is that Amorim can. And I know there's a lot of people, football fans, that know trophies are the pinnacle. The problem is it's not as binary as that, and it shouldn't be as polarised. I always understood what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer meant by trophies are kind of for your ego. And you look at the way Van Gaal kind of ignored how bad we were in the league because I got an FA Cup. Jose was like, doesn't matter that we're not doing great in the league. I won you 3 trophies. Ten Hag basically said last year, and I'm paraphrasing, but we've been the second best team in England because no one other than City has won more trophies than us in the last 2 years. And for me, ignoring the league form and the consistency in the league is been part of the road to ruin. And the club needs to focus on becoming a consistent team at league level, because typically speaking, if you're in title races regularly, you've got more chance of winning the domestic trophies and the bigger prizes, the Champions Leagues and the Premier Leagues. And that's where you've got to aim to be. And I love the fact we've picked up these cups and I've celebrated them, but they don't quench my thirst. Being a consistent league title contender and adding the trophies is where we need to be as a bare minimum. So I agree with him, because he knows that we've won trophies in the last 12 years. It hasn't fixed the club. No. What we need is a better squad, better football, which should make us better in the league. And when we become consistent at that level, then you start moving towards, I think, being fixed.
I agree. I think that's exactly what Amorim is sort of alluding to. If you win a trophy, it's great. The club have won trophies and they're still crap in the league. If I'm in the Champions League because of this trophy, I get more money to build a team. He's not saying that trophies aren't important. It's like you said, if I was consistent, if I was in the top 4 already, the trophy would probably be more valuable because it's a silverware.
Yes.
But we are a club that absolutely needs this money to build what I need to build. And just on the league thing as well, I've told this story before. When I was about 16, final year at school, we were playing in a league and we had a really good team. And at the start of the season, we had big rivals, and it was basically one of us to win the league. And stupidly, every week we'd check each other's scores, and if they lost and we lost, we'd be like, "That's okay." And then about February, we started looking at the league, and this team that was at the top was about 8 points clear, and it wasn't either of us because we'd been so focused on us, we didn't catch them, and they won the league. We then played each other in the cup final. We won the cup against them, and it was great. And I remember my manager saying to me, "You don't look as happy as I thought you'd be." And I went, "Yeah, because I wanted to win the league." And we're not even playing the league winners in the final. We're playing this bloody rivalry that we focused on all season, and they've gone and won the bloody league. And I think that there's something. It's like Sir Alex always used to say, the league is your bread and butter.
Yes.
And I think that is why I understand people like Paul Scholes, because they're from a time where the league was really important, but the context is that we're not that team anymore. And conversely, I think that's what Amorim wants to do. What did you think about the pressure on the final from the manager? Because I sort of picked up on this from his press conference when he said that win or else. And he was asked that thing about, I can't remember if you said it was a positive as well, actually. A lot of people have been saying, if we're not in Europe, he gets more time on the training ground. And he said, yeah, I do need more time on the training ground, but I can't sit here and say not being in Europe, even though it gives me more time on the training ground is a good thing. If we're not in Europe, we're in big trouble. So he's basically saying, if we're not in Europe, I need ridiculous patience from the journalists, from the fans, because we're not going to get the money. I'm going to be working with the same players. He's really putting a lot of pressure on it, which is great if you've got the players that can handle the pressure.
No, I agree. He knows there's a lot riding on this, and he understands that there are financial implications that will slow down the improvement of the squad. I know Simon Jordan called him Machiavellian this week, which I thought was just, and that he's a bit snide and he says these things to try and get people on side, and he's not authentic.
That bloke needs to stop swallowing a dictionary before he goes to bed.
Meant to be a working class boy talking like that. But for me, I see him as a very authentic individual. There is the possibility that I'm just hearing confirmation bias, because he says so many things that prick my ears to what's been wrong with the club for 10 years. And he is. But when he talks about, and this is where people frustrate me, is they forget what's been said before. So when he spoke after the West Ham game about, I'm paraphrasing, but players not giving their all, he said the same thing when we played very well and got praised against Liverpool. So he's not picking and choosing when to discredit his team. He's done it after wins. When we won big Europa League games, they said, "Oh, you must be so proud." I would be if we were doing this every week.
Yeah.
So it's not. He isn't just waiting for those. Again, we've had other managers in the past. They win a game and they start flaunting it in your face, and then they lose a game and they get angry. He has had a very consistent message from day one, ironically, without directly calling the players out, which the same people that are Amorim out and the same people that are calling Machiavellian used to say was wrong for calling players out. What he's not doing is going, and I'm making these examples up, people, so don't I'm not saying is these players. He's not going, Shaw doesn't use his own brain. He isn't saying this player is lazy. He isn't smashing up water bottles when an attacker misses a chance. He isn't hanging anybody else out to dry. But he's letting us know,
he has
subtly,
got those opinions.
These players some of them aren't good enough. Some of them don't work hard enough.
It's my knowledge, yeah.
Exactly. And what he's doing is, but he's also saying, I acknowledge that I'm still not getting enough out of them, but we need time. And he's owning it without putting it on the players. And for me, I just hope that Ineos, and I know you will say they maybe won't have this, but I just hope they have the brain capacity to understand that this is not a coaching and a managerial issue, and it hasn't been at Man United. And again, it came a point where I knew Jose had to go, Ollie had to go, Ten Hag had to go, because it was an untenable situation. But I have screamed this from the rooftop for 12 years. The manager or the head coach has never been the problem at Man United once in the last 12 years. The problem has always been recruitment, debt, bad culture. And this has got exponentially worse over time because you're just adding... I've always given this example. Imagine you've got rot in your roof. If you just go up there and now unscrew new bits of wood in to keep it strong, great for a short period of time, but that new wood is eventually going to become rotten as well. And what we've never done is clear that all out and start again. And we've got a chance to. We've started doing that with most of the board of directors changing, the sporting directors,
Anthony,
players leaving, a new manager, a new way of playing football. And yes, we've gone backwards in the pursuit of going forward, which is actually normal across examples in life.
Well, if you clear your roof out, you're going to let lot more rain in.
For a period of time, it's going to be worse, absolutely. But people are just too impatient or too blind to... And the people that are impatient, they're also the individuals, when you go back through their timelines or you've interacted with them on socials like I have in the last 12 years, that have always had a view of simply, once you sack Jose, the next manager can get this squad challenging. Once Ollie's gone, you watch the levels go up. Listen, get rid of McTominay, watch how good we are next year. Get rid of that virus Pogba, never was one, by the way. Look how good we'll be as a team. I can't
understand. Rashford was an issue,
but he's not the problem.
Yeah.
And Man United fans have got to wake up and smell the coffee and understand that you could sack Amorim tomorrow. Ineos could sell us to the Qataris. It's still going to take 3 or 4 years to fix us. We are broken beyond belief and have more scrutiny and pressure placed upon us than any other club in this country by a mile. We have to drop this, sorry to be rude, this delusional notion that we can be fixed in a summer. It is impossible. I heard a United fan the other day say Madrid wouldn't put up with this. Madrid wouldn't have Rasmus as their main striker. Madrid wouldn't have Lindelof at their football club, period. Just to give you 2 examples. They wouldn't have allowed bankers and marketing experts to run the club for 12 years. You can't make the comparison. It is utterly ridiculous.
It is scary that there are people out there, and you're right, that still think, let's sack Amorim because someone else can come in and work with these players, and yet these players have failed under multiple managers. And also, some people will say, well, some of these players haven't, but it's learnt behaviour. And I think with Amorim as well, you're right, like his message has always been very, very clear. Even after the Everton game, when we won right in December, I think it was the second game having drawn at Ipswich, there was people outside Old Trafford going, Amorim ball's here. And I said, that's not Amorim ball, by the way. And people were like, negative. Then literally 5 minutes later, Amorim did a press conference and said, that's not Amorim ball. Like, we're going to suffer. That's not what I want. It's a start. But going back to what we were talking about the manager putting pressure on the team by saying if we lose, we're staring into the abyss. I think he's right. I think some people will say he's putting too much pressure on the players. You know, he's making it very obvious that if Man United lose this game, it's all over, and that might be quite a negative environment for the players. But very few players are safe. Even the Bruno Fernandezes could be going to Saudi, apparently. So there is very few players in that dressing room that are actually safe. So if Ruben Amorim is saying, if we lose this final, we're in the shit. If you think about Casemiro wasn't in his team. and Casemiro is now in his team. So that proves to everybody in that dressing room that there is a way back. So if you are a player that in that final does a job for him, whether you're a Nana, Rasmus, Mainu, Mount, Luke Shaw, the fans might be saying get rid of these players, but Amorim might go, you know what, in that game, you showed me something that I think I can work with you. So by saying it's a massive game, some people think the players are going to, you know, buckle under the pressure, which they can do. Or some players might even sabotage it because they'll go, well, if we lose, I might stay because no one will buy me. But I actually think Amorim's doing the right thing.
No, I agree. There might even be players that have a brilliant final, but it might also be proof they've got to go in the sense of, and we're not behind the scenes taking the notes, and you might find they go, actually, look, I'm not even going to name a player because people will take it personally, but player X, in these 5, 6, 7 games against the bottom of the half of the table, he only covers 5 kilometres per game, barely shoots, pulls out of tackles. But if you actually watch him in the Liverpool game, in this cup final, in this semi-final, run like a madman. For me, that's an indicator to get rid of that person, because what we need is someone that's willing to do that, have that final performance every single week. And Liverpool didn't become champions this year just because they had Mo Salah and a brilliant team technically. Every single player run through a brick wall for 30. What they win on the 32nd game. So for 32 games, they ran through brick walls for each other. They did not let up. And they only lost a couple of those football matches where I feel with Manchester United, we have too many players who think they can pick and choose when they can turn up. And that is learnt behaviour that's been going on for about a decade now. And that's a massive thing that Amorim's got to pull out. So, yeah, look, I think we are staring into the abyss. It's a scary time for the club. But there's also an element of me that's quite excited about the journey we could go on. We've just got to allow the journey to start and stop stopping it every 5 minutes, you know?
I've got to say, I mean, Chelsea, I think, will be a draw. What do you think?
I'm going to go 2-1 Chelsea.
Yeah, but I do feel a little bit more confident about the final with Kulusevski out because I think, you know, it's another creative and goals win games and they play a high line. So the weaker they are up front, I think that plays towards us. So look, it's just building up. It's building up perfectly, and you've got absolutely loads in this video to get your comments in about, including what your team would be for Chelsea. Absolute pleasure having you on, Terry.
Lovely, mate.
In the studio for the first time.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Absolutely top notch.
Thank you very much. Terry will be on again soon. I'll be on again soon. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you get your comments in, smash a like on the video, and we'll speak to you on the next one.